could Dark Samus have really won the Phazon Crisis? And more so, did she and her space pirates have the power to topple the Galactic Federation? Welcome back to the Lore Raider, where we cover the greatest female-led series from Metroid to Bayonetta to Tomb Raider. If you like the content like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Between the events of Metroid 2 and 3, Dark Samus expressed an ambition to try and rule the galaxy and set about gaining control of the weakened space pirate forces and subjugating them to her will. But how much power did Dark Samus' forces actually have? And even if Samus Aran had not intervened, did Dark Samus have any real chance of winning the day? Let's take a look. First, let's take a look at Dark Samus' forces, and credit where credit is due. For having essentially only a few months at most to build her armies, Dark Samus manages to gain the majority of the then heavily diminished space pirate forces in the Milky Way galaxy, and manages to convince or coerce Meta Ridley to join her cause as well. We also know that she helped build up the space pirates, teaching them how to integrate Phazon into their ships, organize them neatly into a cult of personality centered around her own worship, and as we see in Federation Force, was likely mere weeks away from having a functional superweapon at her disposal in the form of the massive fleet-killing Doomseye, and its onboard commander, simply known as Master Brain, and even had enough Talon Metroids to use offensively while we're at it. Then, after the invasion of Norian, Dark Samus would be given further boons, both in the forms of the bounty hunters Gore, Rundus, and Gandrada, who acted as commanders for her army, and we know at least Gandrada, the latter of which, kept the troops firmly in line, which we find out from the Mistress Gandrada space pirate data. But she also seemingly managed to gain control of the Elysian security forces, which we see are hostile to Samus when she visits Elysia. In terms of sheer territory, Dark Samus had some territory to call her own. She controlled most of the Federation solar system, with her forces on Brio and Elysia. She owned another star system which contained the pirate homeworld of Ertrugus. She controlled the Bermuda system where the Doomsday was being developed. And finally, she owned planet Phase, which she declared to be her homeworld. Not bad for only a few months of prep time. On the surface, this may seem to be a powerful army, but was it? What is worth noting is that at this point in time, in the year 2026 of the cosmic calendar, there were several other space pirate holdouts not under Dark Samus' control. The Zebesians were still secretly attempting to rebuild Mother Brain and the Zebes base. Meanwhile, Greed controlled by far the most territory of any pirate leader and resources out in the remote extreme galaxy, which, yes, multiple sources from the Prime Hunter's Rhodey interview to the creators of the Other M live action trailer to the creator of the Samus Joy manga itself all confirm these manga are canon. I don't want to see a comment about it in the comment section. Moving on though, aside from Mother Brain and Greed, we know that Kraid, Phantoon, and Dragon were all significant pirate leaders left unaccounted for. In short, Dark Samus hadn't pacified all the space pirates, and indeed her resources were outright dwarfed by Greed's forces. But he was off in another galaxy. It is possible had she lived, she would have had to directly contend with either the factions one way or another. Greed does state Ridley was more or less the linchpin of the entire space dragon species, and so, with the great space dragon leader behind Dark Samus, perhaps Greed would have bent the knee. Perhaps Dark Samus felt confident that, with a super weapon on the way and having secured Ridley's support, she would have soon assimilated these other splinter factions. Either way, as we know, she canonically attacks the Federation base at Norian and begins her war. So had Samus not been there, what were her odds of winning? Unfortunately, in my opinion, Dark Samus' odds don't look too great. I don't deny her opening moves were solid, having shut down the Aurora unit, thereby preventing the Federation from reinforcing Admiral Dane's Marine forces and successfully managing to capture both Brio and Elysia, and in this timeline she may have even managed to capture or destroy Norian too. However, during Prime 3, the Federation was fighting with both arms behind their back. Admiral Dane was just that, one admiral with one fleet. However, there were doubtless other forces the Marines could have eventually fielded, such as General Alex Miles' pet project, the Federation Force. That didn't even count the Federation Army, such as Commander Adam Malkovich's Platoon 07, And as a tactician, it is worth noting Malkovich was a wartime rival of Ridley himself, which is no small feat. And if the Federation is truly desperate, it still has the well-armed Federation police it could send in as a reserve force. Dark Samus' navy, on the other hand, well, we only have seen it thrice. A force sent to attack Norian, which failed. The fleet defending the Doom's Eye, which failed. And a defensive fleet around Phase itself, which failed. But we see no ships around Brio or Elysia or even the pirate homeworld, and the Federation would enjoy immediate and total naval superiority. In canon, Admiral Dane's singular armada managed to stave off Dark Samus's, and General Miles' Federation force and his armada was successful in destroying the Doom's Eye superweapon. It seems unlikely, if not impossible, for Dark Samus' forces on land and in space to score meaningful victories. When it's all said and done, Dark Samus will stand alone. Greed will not risk himself in helping the clear loser of a war. Mother Brain is still inactive and couldn't do anything even if she wanted to, and Dark Samus would be forced to hole up on Phase. It is likely the Federation could not actually secure the planet, as simply being on the planet nearly killed Samus herself, and let alone baseline Federation soldiers. A ground invasion would have just been foolish. But the space pirates would have been destroyed, and Dark Samus' ambitions ended. In the end, she was just too self-confident for her own good. Anyone who starts a cult around themselves must have an inflated sense of ego. In the end, it would be her undoing. But well, that's all I have for you today. You know how I leave you. Be safe, be wise, and please pray for a true peace in space.